Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Sri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Iti Namine Prema Bhakti Rasanandam Kripa Sindhu Mamananam Pragyapayantam Vande Sri Bhakti Vedanta Narayanam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. So we are continuing today with Shri Brahma Samhita verses 20 and 21. Yojayatva tutanyeva pravivesha svayam guham pravishte tasminstu jivatma pratibudhyate. When Bhagavan mixed together the individual essential realities, he manifested unlimited numbers of material universes. After that, he personally entered into his hidden abode, the innermost region of each universe. At that time, all the living entities woke up from the sleeping condition in which they had passed the duration of the cosmic dissolution. Translation of Tika by Srila Jiva Goswami Pad. Now, there is a description of Bhagavan's third type of procedure. After combining the individual gross essential realities, Bhagavan accepted mystic slumber. In between the activity of amalgamating the essential realities and accepting mystic slumber, he entered his hidden abode, the body of the universal form. Then all the living entities who had been sleeping during the cosmic dissolution woke up. That is, they immediately became absorbed in enjoyment and activities in accordance with their past impressions. So let's go on and hear the Tatparya of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We had previously talked about how the primary creation takes place, the unmixed uh, elements of Prakriti are mixed with ahankar in the three modes of material nature. The three modes are manifest, and then this gives rise to mind, intelligence, and ego. So ahankar is that essential kind of first covering or glue that helps to bind the living entity to the material world. And then the mind and intelligence, along with ahankar, comprise the sukshma sharir of the living entity. So let us hear Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to give some explanations about hidden abode. Tatparya by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The term hidden abode assumes a variety of connotations in numerous places throughout Shastra. In some places, the unmanifest pastimes have been called hidden abode, and the word being used here is guhashaya or guha. In other places, hidden abode refers to the location of the indwelling witness, meaning the supersoul, the Paramatma, who is also called Antaryami. And Antaryami literally is indwelling. In many instances, the inner chamber of every jiva's heart has been called hidden abode. In essence, the term hidden abode is used to indicate any place that is imperceptible to the common man. In the previous creation, countless living entities were absorbed into the bodily limbs of Shri Hari at the time of the cosmic annihilation at the end of Brahmaji's lifespan. These living entities again became manifest within the creation according to their previous fruitive desires. So this is referring to something. It's an important thing to understand. all of the conditioned jivas within this world, they reside within the body of Mahavishnu at the end of Brahmaji's life. So all the universes, with the outgoing breath of Mahavishnu, then all the universes come out of the pores of his body, and Brahmaji is manifest from the navel of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. There is a lotus that comes from the navel of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and from that lotus comes Swayambhu, the self-born Brahmaji, and he does the secondary process of creation from manifesting sages and Prajapatis who are able to populate the universe and also creating the various planetary systems. But when the incoming breath of Mahavishnu takes place, all of the universes are withdrawn, everything is destroyed, everything is wound down in reverse. And the jivas then reside within the body of Mahavishnu. So there is an interesting thing here. It can be said that the Buddha Jiva has come from Mahavishnu. Is this the actual origin of the jiva? No, actually, the jiva has also originated from Mahavishnu, from the glance of Mahavishnu. It is a manifestation of Tatastha Shakti. And the jiva can either go from that Tatastha, from that marginal region, either going towards the spiritual side up or going down towards the material world. And that living entity who has gone down to try to be a Purush, to try to be the enjoyer within the material world, becomes entangled and receives different types of bodies. This is actually not such a terribly important topic, except for one thing, that some people try to say that the Jivatma who has joined in the spiritual world under the shelter of Swarup Shakti can possibly come under the influence of Maya and believe that they can have a place in the material world. This has been made so clear by our acharyas. Unless it is Bhagavan's desire, unless it is to fulfill the desire of Bhagavan, no one will even appear to fall from the spiritual world. The fall of Jai Vijay, this was actually arranged by Yogamaya. This whole curse by the four Kumaras, it was only arranged to fulfill the desire of Bhagavan, and it was the desire of Jai Vijay to provide a good sport for Bhagavan. They are Bhagavan's doorkeepers, his gatekeepers. They love their Prabhu and they want to please him. And they had a desire, oh, could we possibly do something that will please him? Oh, there will be something arranged, Yogamaya arranged, that they had such a desire to please their Prabhu. Their shop was arranged so that they could fall to the material world or appear this way. But some people think very mistakenly that it is possible that there is someone who is in, let's say, Golok Vrindavan, and they are with Krishna and his other associates, and they become somehow envious. The concept of envy cannot enter because it is entirely a product of Maya. Maya does not even come in front of Bhagavan in the material world, what to speak of entering in the spiritual world. So the very concept of being separate from Bhagavan cannot exist outside of the realm of Maya. So the jiva originating from the Tatastha region simply is going one way or the other. And some have looked towards the spiritual world and gone to be eternally liberated, and some have gone towards the material world and have become eternally bound or nitya baddha. But then by the grace of devotees of Bhagavan, they are rescued. Now there's also a reference, Srila Jiva Goswami is describing that the the body of the universal form is also entered by Bhagavan. So the universal form represents the aggregate of the living entities, and when the universal form is awakened by the presence of Bhagavan, then all of the living entities come awake. They are in what's called a sushupti state, or a deeply sleeping state. Now, this was also explained by Guru Maharaj, because Guru Maharaj, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, made statements that some people interpreted mistakenly to think that the living entity, because he said this is our original constitutional position, is to be with Krishna. Then they thought, oh, this means that we fell from the spiritual world. Then one devotee back in 1974, he wrote Guru Maharaj. He said, how is it possible? And Guru Maharaj explained that we were with Krishna just like we were with Mahavishnu in his sport of Srishti Lila, meaning we were with Mahavishnu within the body of Mahavishnu. And then again, as described here, the living entities within Mahavishnu are again transferred back into the material world. So yes, we were with Mahavishnu, but we were in a sushupti state. Anyway, that is what's being explained here. Let's move on to the next verse. Sanityo nitya sambandha prakritischa paraivasa. The living entities are eternal, and they have an eternal relationship with Bhagavan that extends throughout time with neither beginning nor end. By constitution, they are intrinsically his superior potency. Tika translation by Srila Jiva Goswami. The constitutional position of the living entities is being described in this half shloka, beginning with the words sa-nityaha. The word nitya, eternal, indicates that the living entity exists throughout beginningless and endless time. The living entity has an intimate and inseparable eternal relationship with Bhagavan called Samavaya Sambandha. The living entities have an eternal relationship with Bhagavan, just as the rays of the sun are always related to the sun. This has been explained in the Narada Pancharatra. Yat tatastantu chadrupam samavedat tu vinirgatam ranjatam gunaragena sajiva iti khatyate. The living entity who is constituted of the marginal potency, who has been manifested from the knowledge aspect of transcendence, that is Chit Shakti, but who is colored by the influence of Maya's qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance, is called the living entity or Jiva. It has also been, so basically the living entity is manifested from the Chit Shakti of Bhagavan. It is the nature of the living entity to have Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Anandamayo Bhyasat. By nature, the living entity seeks bliss. The living entity does not by nature seek misery. But the living entity has become covered because of a minute quantity and becomes colored by Sattva Guna, Rajaguna, Tamogun. So this is the Jiva. Now, again, there is, this is explaining this Samavaya Sambandha. So that Samavaya Sambandha, that intimate and inseparable relationship, this is described, the example is given, just like the rays of sun are related to the sun. We are part of the Shakti. Vishnu Shakti Para Prokta Kshetragyaka Tatapara. The living entity is also called the Kshetragya Shakti. That means it is the knower of the field of activities, which is the body. It is also Para, but although Para, it can be covered by the Apara Shakti. Avidya Karma Samganya Tritiya Shakti Dishyate. This is a statement of the Vishnu Puran. It has also been stated in Bhagavad Gita 15:7, Mamaivamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. The living entity is my part and parcel. He exists eternally as an individual living entity and is therefore eternal by nature. This is a very important statement from Bhagavad Gita. Thus, the living entity is called superior energy. Prakriti means that the living entity is a reflection of the image of Bhagavan, who is manifest as the indwelling witness or the supersoul. So basically, it is almost like that statement. There is a statement in the Bible, man is made in God's image, but this is referring to the Jivatma. It has been confused with, oh, we have a bodily resemblance. Although it is true, Krishna is present in a human-like form, which appears to be human, but is actually divine. But the Jivatma is also in the image of Bhagavan. The Satchit Ananda nature of Bhagavan is also reflected in the Jiva. The Jiva is part of Shakti. Shakti, Shakti Mator Abheda. There is no difference between Shakti and Shaktiman. Now, Bhagavan is manifest as the indwelling witness, the supersoul, Paramatma. In the form of the knower of the body, the living entity has a state like one of the Lord's predominated potencies. Therefore, it is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Prakritim Viddhime Param Jiva Bhuta Mahabhavo. The living entity is my superior potency. So the living entity is part of the superior energy of Bhagavan, only because the living entity is in a very minute fragmentary state, the jiva can become covered by Maya. There's an example given, which is there is a fire, big blazing fire. Now, the sparks of the fire have equal heat with the fire itself, but as soon as that little tiny spark goes out of the blazing fire, it might land on the ground, or it might land in leaves, or it may land in water. It can become extinguished to different degrees. The eternal intrinsic nature of the living entity is also established by Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Dva Suparnasa Yuja Sakaya. There, the individual Jivatma and Paramatma have been compared to two birds sitting on a branch of the same peepal tree, sitting on the same branch of a banyan tree. One of them, the Jivatma, is trying to enjoy the fruits of the tree. And there's even a picture done. You see one bird stretching its beak out, trying to eat the fruits, flapping its wings. And there's the other one who's simply watching silently and observing everything. So Paramatma is also called Anumanta and Upadrashta, the permitter and the overseer. So let us hear the Tatparya of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Just as the relationship between the sun and its rays is eternal, similarly, the living entities have an eternal relationship with Bhagavan, the transcendental sun. Since the living entities are particles of the rays of Bhagavan, they are not temporary like material substances. Now remember the statement of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Natvevaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipa nachaiva na bhavishyamah sarve vayam ata param. There was never a time when I did not exist. There was never a time when you did not exist. There was never a time when any of the kings assembled on this battlefield did not exist, nor in the future will we ever cease to be. This is kind of an essential part of understanding Atma Tattva. So Atma is not temporary, has always existed. So by his intrinsic nature, the living entity is knowledge, the knower, the possessor of ego, the enjoyer, the thinker, and the doer. Sri Krishna is unlimited, omniscient, and omnipotent. So these are the distinguishing characteristics. So the living entity is knowledge, is by nature, has knowledge intrinsically, is also the knower, and is also the possessor of ego, identity, and identifies as the enjoyer in this world. So the living entity is Bhagavan's eternal servant, and Bhagavan is the Jiva's eternal master. The living entities are also eligible for exchanging transcendental loving mellows with Bhagavan. Some from the Bhagavad Gita statement, Apareyamitastvanyam prakatim vidime param, it is understood that the living entity is Sri Krishna's superior potency. So again, this is the concept. The living entity, the Jivatma, is the superior potency, but The living entity who becomes entangled in the world, in this material world, is struggling with prakriti, struggling with the senses, always struggling to try to gain some fruits to enjoy. But the intelligent living entity who has taken shelter in the spiritual world is always engaged in transcendental bliss and exchanging transcendental mellows, and always happy. There is no suffering. There is no passage of time, no birth, death, disease, and old age in the spiritual world. So all of the qualities of the pure Jivatma are beyond the 8 components of the inferior energy, beginning with false ego. So it is very hard for us to conceive of spiritual existence because we think of everything in terms of ego. I, me, and mine. We think, oh, with my mind and my intelligence and my strength. Oh, you are thinking of your body as strong and you are thinking of yourself as the owner of the body and the enjoyer, but actually you don't understand that the body has been given and you are simply identifying with matter, right? So that's the thing that we want to get past. So, although the potency that comprises the living entities is insignificant, being composed of tiny spiritual particles, it is still superior to Maya. So, when it is said here, insignificant, because the jivas are tiny. Keshagra shatadbhagasya shatadha kalpitasya cha. If you divide the size of the tip of a hair into 100 and then divide it further into 100, 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair, according to Shvetashvatara Upanishad, this is the size of the living entity. So very, very tiny, but still superior to Maya. And this potency is known as the marginal potency, or tatasta. So the word marginal indicates that it is situated on the marginal line between the material energy and the eternal reality of spiritual existence. The living entity is liable to come under the control of Maya because of his infinitesimal nature. So the living entity from the marginal position in between can come under the influence of Maya only because of this very infinitesimal, very tiny nature. The living entities who have been conditioned from time immemorial suffer the distress of material existence and repeatedly rotate in the cycle of birth and death. This is the meaning of Anadi Buddha. However, when the living entity submits and remains under the control of Sri Krishna, the master of Maya, he can never fall under the control of Maya. Yad gatva nanivartante tad dhamma paramam mama. This is the statement of Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. That abode of mind is that place to which, having gone, one never returns to this world. So this is a lot of tattva we're going through up until verse 28, and then verse 29 onward. There is quite a lot of very beautiful and nectarian description of the spiritual world. And we are now coming to the point where all the tattva of the material creation, we're almost done with that, and we will move on to hearing how Brahmaji received initiation in the Gayatri Mantra, and by his meditation, he was able to achieve darshan of the spiritual world. So, this is a good place to stop, and we'll continue next week. Hare Krishna.